Hi, I'm going to continue reading another part of The Whipping Boy by Sid Fleischman, and this is Chapter 3, The Runaways. One night when the moon gazed down like an evil eye, the young prince appeared in Jemmy's chamber. "Boy, tumble out of bed. I need a manservant." Jemmy saw that the prince was wearing a black cloak and carrying a wicker basket the size of a sea chest. "What are you up to now? Walking in your royal sleep, are you?" "I'm running away." The whipping boy sat bolt upright. Hardly a day passed when he didn't make one plan or another to run off. But a prince? What horrible new mischief was this? "You can't hop off like you was a common folk. What's biting you?" said the prince. "I'm bored." "With dumping bullfrogs in the moat so no one gets a wink of sleep?" "Boring." "And didn't you laugh fit to kill when the knights slipped off their horses and clattered to the ground? You'd hog greased the saddles." The prince folded his arms. "Boring." "And don't you get me thrashed so that this hide of mine feels like the devil run over me with spikes in his shoes. Let's be off." "Why me?" Jemmy thought. "Can't you find a friend to run off with you?" "But no, not you, Prince Brat. You've got no friends. That's why me." Jemmy pointed to the window. "It's night out," he protested. "It's night out," he protested. "The best time," said the prince. "But ain't you afraid of the dark? Everyone knows that. You won't even sleep without a candle." "Lies. Anyway, the moon's up good and bright. Come on." Jemmy stared at him with a dreadful astonishment. "The king'll have a gory-eyed fit." "Positively." "He'll hunt us down. You'll get off light as a feather, but I'll be lucky if they don't whip me to the bone. More likely I'll be hung from the gallows. Scragged for sure." "Your lookout," said the prince with a dry grin. "Carry the basket, Jemmy, from the streets, and follow me." Chapter 4. Containing Hands in the Fog. The night moon had lit their way like a lantern, but by dawn the runaways, double mounted on a horse from the castle stable, were hopelessly lost. A thick fog had swirled in, and they strayed from the road, and the trees had closed in on them. "Forest is creepy things," said Jemmy, hanging on to the basket as best he could. "Gimme cobbled streets any time." A low branch almost swept them off the saddle. "Boy," said the prince, "get down and lead this dumb-headed beast." "Lead it? In this fog? I'll need 2 hands and a lantern to find my own nose." But Jemmy slipped off the saddle. A plan had been tumbling around in his head. "Here's your chance, Jemmy," he told himself. "Slip away in the fog. Run for it. No more whippings for you. Not if you can't be found. The great sewers, Jemmy, that's the place to hide." "What's keeping you?" said the prince. "Grab the halter." "I'm thinking." Leaves crackled under Jemmy's feet as he began to back off. His mind was made up. Once the fog cleared, he'd find the river. Hadn't his pa taught him his way through the maze of mighty brick sewers? And when they'd caught the fiercest rat to sell by the cageful, the dog and rat pits paid fancy prices for the best fighters, and that meant sewer rats. Who'd think to look for Jemmy under the sewers? Jemmy took another crackling step backward and froze. A sudden yellow glow floated in the fog. The prince burst into squawks and bellows. And here's a picture of him first, getting away on the horse. And the prince hears something. "Who's there? Let go. Take your hands off me, you insolent rascal." There came a rough, booming reply. "Oh, what we got here?" The glowing lantern swayed. "A noisy brat on a fine beast of a horse?" Jemmy edged closer. A cutthroat, he thought. Like a snake striking, a ghostly hand darted through the fog and clutched his arm. A second cutthroat. Jemmy looked up and barely made out a long, bony face with hollow cheeks and a nose like a meat cleaver. "I got another one, Billy," cackled the second man, shoving Jemmy forward. Chapter 5. Hold Your Nose Billy, and Cutwater. Billy pulled Prince Brat from the saddle and threw him into Jemmy. Raising the lantern, the man held it close enough that Jemmy could feel the heat of the flame. Billy was a big man, he saw, big and raw as a skinned ox, and he smelled like a ton of garlic. "Not much of a catch. 2 sparrows," said Billy. "But ain't they trimmed up in fancy rags, Cutwater?" "Ain't they?" said the Rattlebone man. "Got any gold in your pockets, lads?" "No business of yours," snapped the prince. "Ah, but so help me, it is my business," Billy said, with a thunderclap of laughter. "Don't you know who I am?" "A clod and a ruffian," said the prince. "Worse than that," corrected the big man. "Ain't you ever heard of Hold Your Nose Billy?" "Famous he is," said Cutwater. "Put to song is Billy." Jemmy thought he remembered. Had he heard ballad singers fling that name on the streets? The exploits of Hold Your Nose something or other in verses by the yard? The highwayman, are you? The same. The murderer. Only in the line of duty. Hold Your Nose, Billy chuckled. So you won't mind if we take your horse and empty your pockets? "Not a copper between us," said Jemmy. A prince didn't carry money, for he had no use for it, and Jemmy's accounts were kept on the books. "What's in the basket?" piped Cutwater. "Hands off, villain!" snapped Prince Brat. "Don't you know who I am?" Jeremy gave the prince a sudden jab of his elbow to keep his mouth shut. Not a word. But the heir to the throne raised himself up to full height. "Bow to your prince." Fog swirled around the lantern. "Bow to what?" said Cutwater. "I am Prince Horace." "And I'm the Grand Turnip of China," Cutwater snickered. "Dim-witted villain," said the prince. "I command you to turn us loose, or Papa will hang you pair in chains." "Hold your trap," Jemmy thought. "Don't you have a thimbleful of brains? A prince would make a fine catch for these rogues." "Ah, me friend's muddle-headed," he declared. "His pa's nothing but a rat-catcher. But don't he put on airs, though." "Got enough lip for 2 sets of teeth," chortled the big highwayman. "Cutwater, take the lantern and fetch the horse." "What do you reckon's in the basket, Billy?" "Plenty of time to find out." The lantern floated off, and the evil-smelling Billy clutched each boy hard by the ear. "Stir your legs, walk, and don't let me catch you on our turf again. Do I make myself clear?" "Clear as window glass," said Jemmy with a sigh of relief. "If you'd be kind enough to point us towards the river, I'd be ever so much obliged." "Billy," shouted Cutwater, "they ain't just common sparrows. Have a look at this saddle." Hold Your Nose Billy hung on to the boy's ears. At the horse's side, Cutwater was holding the lantern to the saddle. "Skin me alive," declared the big man in awe. "That's the king's own crest." "We stole it, horse and saddle," Jemmy put in desperately. "Bosh!" said Prince Brat scornfully. "Didn't I tell you who I was? Bow low, you fools, and be off." But the 2 men neither bowed nor fled. Hold Your Nose Billy threw a bushy-eyed glance at this fellow outlaw. "Cutwater, what do you reckon a genuine prince on the hoof is worth?" "His weight in gold, at least, Billy." So now they're caught by the bad guys. We'll find out what happens next.